It's been a long time coming, hasn't it, folks? But finally, The Walking Dead has returned to TV. My name is Nate. This is the first ever Fright Flicks review of The Walking Dead for the premiere episode of Season 6. Fright Flicks hasn't really been around that long yet. This is the first time that I've had the ability to get on here and discuss a new, brand spanking new episode of Walking Dead with everybody. And I'm pretty excited about it. I've been excited about the return of this show for the last couple of months. It hasn't always been this way, but over the last couple of years, seasons 4 and 5, Walking Dead has really emerged as, in my estimation, one of the best shows on TV, and absolutely one of my favorites, with a lot of my favorite characters. And over the last 2 years, many of my favorite hours of television have come from this show. So it was with very high expectations that I dug into Season 6, Episode 1, titled First Time Again. This episode was directed by FX wizard Greg Nicotero. If you don't know the name, shame on you, honestly. He is not arguably, he is one of the, and arguably the top FX guy ever. And over the last 20 years, he is the name. And he's transitioned from just being an FX guy into being a very good director. And he's directed, I think, 10 or 12 episodes of The Walking Dead, several of which are amazing. This episode was written or co-written by Scott Gimple. I always look for Scott Gimple written episodes. He's my go-to name. He pops out of the credits for me. Not only did he write The Grove, one of the most heart-wrenching episodes the show's ever done, he also wrote No Sanctuary, which was the season 5 kickoff, which I like to call Escape from Terminus. That may be my single favorite episode the show's ever done. I'm not sure, but it's definitely up there. With these two guys working together, you knew this episode was going to be big, and it is. It was bigger than an hour could contain. This is a 90-minute episode. It's done in a flashback, jump back and forth format, with now and then flashing back to then to catch you up on the events immediately following the season 5 finale, where Morgan showed up and Rick killed that doctor, executed him in front of everybody, what have you. What's interesting, though, is that the flashback is only, I can't say for sure, a few days, tops, a few days have passed. And we're in the middle of a huge, what I can only call, scheme to save Alexandria from a horde of a few thousand zombies, an entire quarry worth of zombies. Rick lays out this elaborate plan to herd all these zombies away from Alexandria. It seems pretty complicated and pretty massive, and that's the backbone of the episode. And what this allows is the best of both worlds. This framework allows for a lot of character moments and a lot of development for almost every character on the show. Not all of them, but a lot of them get a lot of development. With a ton of zombie action. Like, I don't watch Talking Dead or read the dirt sheets or anything. I don't know how many zombie makeups they did for this episode, but it's massive. They might have been going for some sort of record. There appeared to be like there were thousands of zombies to the eye, but hundreds of them were in full makeup. It wasn't just like people in tattered clothes shuffling along. These were deformed and disfigured zombies on a massive scale, and it was pretty impressive. So if you came for drama, I think you would be satisfied, and if you just came for the gore factor, then you're definitely going to be satisfied, because this was some great zombie action. Some might even argue there was too much zombie action, and I don't know that I could dispute that argument. But it is a zombie show, so I'm not going to put up a fuss about that. I will say that maybe this episode didn't need to be 90 minutes. I understand it was a little too big for their normal 1 hour format, but maybe an extra 10 or 15 minutes would have kept the show a little bit leaner. That said, it all built to what I felt was an incredibly satisfying payoff because, all right, a TV show, an episode of a show, needs to be engaging in and of itself. It doesn't necessarily need to tell a full story, but it needs to tell enough of a story to keep me invested for that hour, right? But this is an ongoing serialized drama. So, it also, equally important, is not only do I need to be satisfied with this hour, but I need to be compelled to see that I need to come back the next week. They need to make sure that I'm so hooked there's no way I'm going to miss next week. And they did that. I was compelled throughout the episode, and then when it came to the finale, the wide shot from high above of how many zombies are trudging toward Alexandria now, when it went to credits, I groaned. I literally went, "Ugh! I have to wait another week to see the next scene." So, score on that. Maybe they did need the 90 minutes, though. I don't know. This is a show with a sprawling cast, to say the least. And not only did they try to catch up a little or a lot with every single one of the major characters, of which there are a lot at this point, they're also reintegrating Morgan into the mix, and he's a fascinating character, so he gets a little time. And they build up a couple of other side characters. That kid Nicholas, who Glenn beat the crap out of at the end of last season. And, side note, Glenn actually literally beat respect into him. And it was really nice to see. It's an old school sentiment, but literally beating respect into someone, it's kind of awesome. Go, go Glenn. But on top of all that, and catching up with everybody, they also introduced two new major characters, or so you think. There is a gentleman named Heath who has a great scene with Eugene, where Eugene says, "Hey, I respect the hair game," just reminding everybody how post-racial the characters on this show are. And then also a guy named Carter, who is a builder and an architect who used to work with Deanna's husband before he got sliced. And Carter is played by Ethan Embry, who you may remember from his younger days when he was like a 90s rom-com guy, Can't Hardly Wait. I believe he was in that. More recently, he's been in some horror stuff. And I like Ethan Embry, so I was sort of excited to see him join the cast. And he, throughout this episode, actually gets his own story arc. This is a testament to the show, how you can cram so many different characters and so much zombie action, and then also introduce somebody new and give them their own story arc, all within one episode. It's pretty impressive. And let me take a minute, an additional minute, to talk about this character of Carter, and how, in my estimation, it really exemplifies what is great about The Walking Dead, and how it continuously surprises me. So this character, he's played by a pretty notable actor, in my estimation, and immediately he's in Rick Grimes' face. He's challenging him on the plan. He doesn't like Rick. He doesn't trust Rick. He doesn't trust this plan about luring the zombies away, and he's in his face about it. And when he gets shouted down by management, he sneaks around and gets together some other like-minded people and starts talking coup. Well, he gets busted by Rick, which leads to, hands down, my favorite moment of the episode, and one of my favorite lines they've ever done in the show, is Rick catches him and gets him down on his knees with a gun to the back of his head and says to him, "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" And he's so incredulous. I was just waiting for him to bust out the, "I'm Rick Grimes, bitch!" But he held back. Maybe they're going to save that for season 7 premiere. I don't know. But in any event, do you have any idea who you're talking to? Was just, the line delivery was amazing. But although he really wants to execute Carter, he doesn't, for several different, very logical reasons. Carter is essential to their plan. They need to build these barricades in order to direct the herd of zombies away from Alexandria. And this is the only guy who knows how to build. This leads to another one of my favorite moments of this episode. As they're building the wall, zombies, a small pack of zombies, like 4 or 5, stumble out of the woods towards them. And Rick pulls Morgan and Michonne and everybody who's competent back and leaves the Alexandrians there by themselves. And he's like, no. Let them do this themselves. Let Carter and this group of weak idiots who've never had to fight, they have to kill some zombies, let them do it. And Morgan's like, no, come on, let me save them. It's like, no, they have to learn. And he's very much the stern, tough love father. I absolutely loved this scene. But then the zombies get too close, and the Alexandrians are just too weak, and they don't even really put up a fight, not even Carter. Not even Ethan Embry. And we know he can fight because, he beat up that woman on Masters of Horror before she killed him. And it's important to note that Carter and the Alexandrians don't fight back. Morgan ends up stepping in and taking out the zombies because they just don't have the wherewithal. They've never had to fight to survive, and it's really hard for them to do that. This is important. Later on in the episode, to continue Carter's story arc, the plan is put into motion, it's deep into the episode, and the plan seems to be working. Carter actually goes to Rick, he apologizes, he extends his hand, and they shake hands. It's a good moment. It's like, all right. He distrusted him, he was going to take him out, Rick was going to take him out, and now they've arrived at mutual respect. So Carter goes up ahead to track the herd, and immediately gets his face ripped off by a zombie. Bam! And the show got me. Like, I literally thought that I was seeing the introduction of a new recurring character on the show. And just when I was convinced that he was going to be around, they bit his face off, and then Rick had to stab him in the head before he turned. Carter served this amazing purpose, and actually, in the short time allotted to his existence, made it mean something. And then it was snuffed out. But this is what is important. Walking Dead kills so many characters. They go through so many characters. It's impressive to me, and it should be impressive to you, the fact that they can make it mean something. Instead of, just somebody else got killed. It wasn't just somebody else. It was this guy Carter, who had gone through some shit, and he seemed like a decent guy. And then he got his face ripped off, and he got stabbed in the skull. What are you going to do? R.I.P. Carter. Now, was the episode perfect? No, of course not. It wasn't perfect. Like I said, it maybe was a little too long. There was the use of black and white. Just in 10 minutes after the episode ended, I just spent a few minutes on Twitter, and that seemed to be a lot of people's major beef, was the use of black and white during the flashbacks, because they were so extensive. I will say, although it did not bother me, it was like a clear delineation between then and now, so I get why they did it, and there was probably a thematic reason about, nothing is black and white. I don't know. So it didn't bother me, but I also didn't think it was necessary at all. They could have jumped back and forth between the two timelines and have it always be in color, and nobody would have been confused. It wasn't that hard to follow. If only because in the flashbacks, half the characters have a bunch of tape on their face from where they got their shit smashed in. And now everybody's face is starting to heal. So that would have been enough to delineate. So it didn't bother me, but I could see how it bothered some people, because people do really hate black and white. And then there were, if I wanted to get nitpicky, and this is how good the episode was, where I'm actually getting nitpicky, To be nitpicky, there were like a couple of little things that just struck me as wrong. Why did the heavily armed group like walk past that tractor store that was inexplicably filled with zombies and say, all right, well, we'll come back just like 5 minutes before we have to when the zombie herd is coming and kill them all. But right now we're just going to keep going. That it would have taken them 5 minutes to just clear the place then. You know, a little bit of a nitpick. Them refusing to bury the dead doctor within the walls of Alexandria seemed a bit of a stretch, and I guess, I understand why they did it for plot reasons, but I hate to use the word realistically with a zombie show, but hey, I'm going to use the word realistically with a zombie show. Realistically, why, instead of just burying the guy or burning his body right there, why would you waste the resources to load him into a car and spend the gas and send people out into zombie territory to drop off his body out there? Just burn him or throw him over the fence. Why go through all that trouble? It seems like a plot contrivance. So, didn't really care for that. Not to mention the human aspect. The guy did have kids, right? Why not just bury him there so the kids can come visit him? A good friend of mine had a little bit of a problem with when Heath and his compatriots show up. It just seemed a little bit too hackneyed and TV, where they're like, hey, we've been gone for the last couple of weeks, so we've missed everything that happened in the last few episodes of the show. Let us in. Eugene answers the gate, and he's like, oh, well, I should probably check with somebody, but you seem like good people. I'll just let you in. I like Eugene. I liked all the characters involved. It just seemed so jammed in there. And all it would have taken is one line of dialogue. Eugene saying, oh yeah, Deanna mentioned, or I was told that there were a couple of crews still out there making runs, so I knew to expect you. Instead of just like, well, I never heard of you and I don't know who you are, but I'm going to let you in anyway. Maybe Eugene isn't as smart as he says he is, but he's smarter than that. These, though, I admit, these are all minor quibbles. In terms of a season premiere, as Walking Dead usually does pretty well, this was amazing. This was a great hour and a half of television. And despite any minor quibbles, this is just looking for something to bitch about. This isn't something that actually distracts from the overall quality of the episode. It was sensational, and it did that. It kept me involved, and I'm so psyched for next week. My enthusiasm is as high as it was last week when I was waiting for the premiere. The premiere totally delivered and made me super psyched for the rest of the season. I'm about to wrap this up. I'm going to get to the final rating on the scale of 1 to 10. How good was First Time Again? I might get there in a second, but I've been talking a lot about character. That's the reason I don't love Walking Dead for the zombies. I love Walking Dead because there's a zombie show with so many compelling characters to me. Daryl is a compelling character. Carol is a compelling character. I like Sasha. I like Abraham. The priest, although I hate him, I actually love to hate the priest. He's great. Maggie and Glenn, great characters. I really like Carl. I think he's a good character. We've introduced a lot of new faces recently, like Heath and Carter this episode, that are both engaging characters, and I like them. On some level, I like almost everybody on the show. The character of Nicholas. At the end of last season, I hated him so much, I actually was rooting for Glenn to compromise his morals and kill the guy. And thank God, Glenn stood tough. He didn't kill the guy, he let him go, he won him over with fists and forgiveness. That's a good title for an album or something, isn't it? Fists and Forgiveness? And within this episode, they actually turned that character around, logically, and made me care about him too. I just wanted him to die. I was rooting for him to die so hard, and now I want for him to live. Now I kind of like the guy. But above all this, and I need to get this out there if you're going to continue to listen to me on a regular basis, above all these great characters, oh, I'm sorry I didn't mention Michonne or anybody else I forgot to mention. There are so many good characters, sometimes you overlook some. But none of them are Rick Grimes. Rick Grimes is my man. Rick Grimes is my spirit animal. Rick Grimes is my role model. He's a lightning rod. His performance is a lightning rod for criticism, both good and bad. Over the seasons, though, the seasons, both good and bad, his performance has been consistent. This is a cop who was thrown into this world as a leader. He wanted to follow the road of peace. This is an actual evolution through devolution. He had to become more primitive. He had to shake loose everything that he was in the old world in order to survive in this new world. And everybody has their own edict for survival in the new world. What sets Rick apart is that in his mind, you don't have to agree with him, for better or worse, but in his mind, Rick is always looking for the protection of his people. Most importantly, his son, but his people. His group, he treats as a family, and the survival of the group is important to Rick above all. And this has pushed him to do some amazingly bloodthirsty things. This is why I love the character so much. No other character on TV, and we'll put Jack Bauer aside. But it's a Jack Bauer style character of doing absolutely horrific things for absolutely the right reasons. Love me some Rick Grimes. I'm looking forward to the rest of this season and what Rick and everybody else gets into. First time again, the supersized Season 6 kickoff episode, for me, gets a 9 out of 10. And I'm going to watch it again in a week. So I will apologize and change my rating next week if I need to. I may be putting it at a 9 just because I refuse to give anything a 10 out of 10 after one watch. It's too easy to be won over by something just one time through. This was an amazing piece of television. Great way to kick off the season. I absolutely loved it. 9 out of 10. That may get upgraded. I don't know. But 9 out of 10. This is a can't miss episode. My name's Nate. Comment on this video, and I will definitely respond to you. You can also get at me through social media, Twitter and Facebook. You can find me at FrightFlix. That's with a CKS at the end, like Flix. And also at NateFlix, my personal account, Twitter and Facebook again. That's NateFlix, like Netflix, only cooler. I will be back next week for a review of episode 2, and I'll tell you, I can't friggin' wait.